Is 48 hours enough time to enjoy Ho Chi Minh City? That is exactly the question I'm going to answer in this video as I travel to Vietnam with my father, where we'll share our experience of the country's largest city. Now, one short trip and one short video could never cover everything the sprawling metropolis has to offer, but what I will show you is a handful of the best things to see and do, as well as a few of the best places to eat, and I'll even cover a few hidden gems along the way. So, without further ado, let's roll the video. It's the middle of April right now and I am in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And the reason I'm here is because I've taken my father to Vietnam to show him a bit of the world and show him life outside of Ireland. Let's see if we can find him. Where'd he go? There he is. So this old man here is my father. He's literally spent all his life in Ireland, grafting, working, and now it's time for him to relax and see what the world can offer him. And in a world full of excitement and opportunity, it turns out all my father wanted was his morning coffee. Right, so we found a cafe here along the street. I come for our first Vietnamese coffee because Dad wasn't giving me peace. I was going around trying to take photos, but he was giving up. So yeah, found their first coffees, then we're going to go for our first bowl of pho. So let's get these down us and we'll catch up then. So that was our first coffee and wow, that was tasty as. One thing I will say about Vietnam is a smile goes a long way. Like when you're walking down the street, you'll notice people are looking at you with these really deep, intense, inquisitive looks. But if you just smile at them and say "Xin chào," their face immediately lights up and they're just so happy and friendly. Now we've finished our coffees, we're going for some Michelin guide pho. So I'm going to try and cross the street here and put the camera away and I'll catch up with you in the restaurant. So we found this Michelin guide recommended place for pho and it's called Pho Hoang. It looks absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for this, my first ever bowl of pho. What's mad about this is only I've ordered the pho, but for some reason this old man's got a spoon beside him.
I think it's simple. Flavors everywhere.
Wow.
I need both.
So yeah, let's try my first ever bowl of pho. It turns out that I'm not very good at ad-libbing food reviews, but I ordered the famous beef pho, and you should know that the broth was absolutely heavenly, being a perfect balance of sweet and savoury beef flavours without too much salt. Now, I did find parts of the beef meat were a little chewy, but overall it was very tender. And of course the noodles were cooked to perfection. And one nice bonus that I discovered that is common in Vietnam is that we were given a huge portion of herbs and leafy greens to add to the broth, which really helped enhance flavors. That was class. Like, I am full and satisfied, but I'm not sluggish or feeling heavy in any way. And even though it's very warm, like even though it's spicy, it's just refreshing and I feel ready to take on the day now. As a breakfast item, I would never consider eating spicy food, but especially in a warm climate like here in Vietnam. But no, that was absolutely perfect, can't fault it whatsoever. And I'm told the reason it's so good is because the chef actually makes the broth over a 12-hour period, which really infuses all those flavors. Because of that was insane. So yeah, make sure you come here, it was delicious. So we're all fed now and we're going to go to a Buddhist temple because Dad's never been in one and he's been absolutely dying to see one since he's got here. So we're waiting on our grab and then we'll see you at the temple. Taking a detour from going to the Buddhist temple to come to Ho Chi Fong, which is the Chinese neighborhood that was built during French colonial times. Guys, just look at these alleyways. How beautiful is the architecture here? Look at the leading lines in these buildings. This is such a little hidden gem on the find here. Really good if you're into architecture too. We're in an area that's surrounded by temples and there's just this little hidden alley with these really cool colonial French style buildings. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful here. Check this out if you're coming by. Not only is it beautiful, but the people are so incredibly friendly, warm and welcoming. Everyone we saw waved to us and said hello, and Dad even managed to have a conversation with these two ladies using Google Translate. After Ho Chi Fong, we decided to skip a temple visit as the heat was getting to us, and also because we didn't feel that we were dressed appropriately enough to enter any temples. Instead, we took a grab to this unsuspecting building with an old Citroen van in the front, because below this building there's a secret underground weapons bunker from which 15 North Vietnamese commandos launched a raid on the nearby presidential palace during the 1968 Tet Offensive. And what's great is, you can tour this mini museum if you buy a drink or a ticket from the adjacent cafe, after which you'll get a tour guide who will take you down to the bunker, through the floor, explain the bunker's history in detail, whilst helping you take as many photos and videos as you'd like, before guiding you back up a secret ladder where you'll exit on the second floor. This is a must-do activity for any history buffs or for anyone looking to do something different in the city. After the bunker, we took a short walk to our next destination, the War Remnants Museum, which I feel you absolutely need to visit even if history does not interest you in the slightest.
We are in the War Remnants Museum now because me and my dad really love history and we're quite fascinated by the Vietnam War. And just as you walk in through the gates to the War Remnants Museum, you come across this, a CH-47 Chinook helicopter. Now, this helicopter is a real special place in my heart because if you know anything about Northern Irish history, we had a period of time called the Troubles, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but basically it meant we had a very heightened British military presence across Northern Ireland. And whenever I was a kid, we used to get a couple of these flying above my house weekly. And now that in itself isn't very special, but if you ever heard the noise of these things, they have a really distinctive thumping noise that you can hear from miles away, and it really fills me with nostalgia when I see them or hear them to this day. So yeah, I'm very excited to see one of these here, and I've never actually got to see one up close, so I'm going to take a walk around it and see what it's like.
So I have intentionally left out most of the videos I recorded inside the museum because to me, this is just somewhere that you need to visit in person to feel the terrifying weight and impact of the exhibits. And I think my dad's facial expressions and body language in the next clip typify how you'll feel after visiting this museum.
So Dad, what do you think of the War Remnants Museum?
Honestly, brutal.
What was the most brutal part about it?
Civilian deaths.
What would you find more harrowing, the war crimes or the use of Agent Orange?
Well, Agent Orange was a war crime, so I think when you start slaughtering innocents, you're just making your enemy stronger, which the Americans don't.
Anything else you want to say?
May it never happen again, but it is.
And it will. We've just left the War Remnants Museum, and that is a very thought-provoking, potent and surreal activity, especially the bit on the war crimes and the Agent Orange. Some of those images, it's tough to see. Definitely go to the War Remnants Museum, even if you're not into history. I think it's important everyone sees what's in there, especially considering the time period we're in right now, where it looks like war is going to return back to Europe and if not the rest of the world. On a brighter note though, it is so warm that we are going to head back and get ourselves showered back out tonight when it's a bit cooler, maybe get some pictures, do a little bit more sightseeing, and then we've got our food tour tonight with Saigon Adventure Tours. So he's dying for that. Anyway, so let's go check out the post office and then we're gonna head home.
On the way to the post office, we walked past the presidential palace. We weren't interested in visiting the palace on this trip, but we realized that you could take yourself on a self-guided tour of District 1 because the secret weapons bunker, the War Remnants Museum, the presidential palace, and the post office are all within walking distance of each other. So that might be something to consider when you visit the area. Anyway, once we reached the post office, we didn't stay long because although it's a beautiful building, there's not much else to see or do in the building itself. So we took a moment to enjoy the architecture, shot some photos, and then we returned back to our accommodation to freshen up for our next must-do activity, a nighttime sightseeing and street food tour.
We have just arrived in District 1 where we're going to be doing our food tour with Saigon Adventures here. I've got my dad with me, my uncle, my auntie and my little cousin. We're going to do a little family tour and try 12 of the best foods Saigon has to offer. So let's go meet our guides, get strapped in and get this tour on the road.
We booked the Saigon Unseen and 7 Tastings tour, which was led by our guide Tony, who is an incredibly friendly, funny and knowledgeable young man who spoke perfect English. Tony was assisted by some local students who helped ferry us from location to location. These guys were also incredibly friendly, spoke perfect English and rode us around in the safest manner possible. After we met our guides, it was a short ride to the first restaurant where we were greeted with jasmine tea. This was quickly followed by a beef noodle soup dish called bun bo hui. Of course, that was after Tony gave my dad a friendly lesson at how to use chopsticks. Once we finished our food, we hopped back on the bikes and rode to our first sightseeing stop, which was the venerable Thich Quang Duc Monument. This was a memorial to the Buddhist monk who set himself on fire in Saigon in 1963 to protest the persecution of Buddhists in Vietnam. Tony went into great detail about the historical facts preceding, during, and after the event. After that, our next destination was a street food stall where we would try a dish called Chui Nhung, which is banana or plantain wrapped in sticky rice, which is then grilled inside a banana leaf before being served with coconut milk sauce. How did it taste, you ask? Well, let's ask my father. Then it was back on the bikes where we rode to our final sightseeing stop in District 3. These are the Nguyen Tien Tuet apartment complexes. Apologies for my terrible pronunciation, but they're known to be street food heavens, and if you're a Westerner, you might feel more comfortable coming here as part of a tour. Although if you're someone who understands how safe and welcoming Vietnam and its people are, and you want to experience some street food markets as the locals do, then I strongly encourage you to venture here on your own. Once Tony finished guiding us through the markets and the apartment buildings, it was time for our next food stop. Here we would have beef wrapped in betel leaves, which was grilled and then served with barbecue sauce and is known as bo la lot. We then washed this down with sugarcane juice before we walked to our final street food stalls, where I tried my very first very delicious banh mi and then promptly washed it down with a Vietnamese flan, which concluded our tour. All in all, this was a great tour lasting 4 hours and only costing us $34 each. And if you'd like to book it for yourself, there's a link in the description that will allow you to do so. I may earn a small commission for anything you book, but this will be at no additional cost to you. And that brings our first day in Ho Chi Minh City to a close. The next day, we were up bright and early to undertake yet another must-do activity in the city, the Cu Chi Tunnels. One of the main reasons we've come to Saigon is to actually go to the Cu Chi Tunnels, because this man here absolutely loves Vietnamese war history. So are you looking forward to that?
Very much so.
We're looking forward to it.
So I'm looking forward to a bit of true history and actually see it, live it, feel it.
From the west side rather than the western side.
Well, definitely from the Vietnamese side.
Yeah. We're going to get our taxi to our pickup point now. We're doing a tour because read online, either do a tour or you get there yourself using public buses. And if you go yourself, you don't get the same experience because apparently some of the guides at the tunnels themselves are hit and miss. So we booked through a company. It is a long drive there. I think it's 2.5 hours. Because of that, we want to travel in a bus that's going to be air conditioned because we're struggling with the heat here. So let's get to the cathedral and we'll hop on the bus, and if I don't catch you before then, I'll catch you at the tunnels. So I'm told that Ben Duc is actually pronounced Bin Zook. So for this tour, we chose Joy Journeys as they were one of the only operators who ran tours out to this site. And our pickup point was the famous Notre Dame Cathedral in District 1, where we met our guide, Logan, who was yet another friendly, knowledgeable and hilarious young man who spoke perfect English. After we made the 2.5-hour journey to the tunnels, Logan showed us some of the weapons which were used by both sides during the war. He then showed us some unexploded ordnance which had been recovered from the area before leading us through the jungle to a briefing area where we were shown cross-sections of the tunnels and their ingenious design and construction. After this, it was time to enter some bunkers. This is where you can get the iconic shot of you popping out from a small trapdoor, or in Dad's case, popping down. Then it was time to enter the tunnels themselves. We've arrived at the first section of tunnel. It's a little small 20-meter section, and we've just learned that all the tunnels here have actually been widened. I thought that they were actually in the original state, but apparently they were far too small. So it's a bit disappointing. That's why I booked the tour, but I guess it's how it is. Our disappointment didn't last long because, well, just look at how cramped this tunnel is. Imagine how small the original tunnels would have been. At Bin Zook, you can choose to crawl through a 20-meter, 60-meter and a 100-meter section of tunnel. Personally, I really recommend crawling through all three, but especially the 100-meter section where you'll have to crawl on all fours and you'll get a real feel of what life was like in these tunnels. Upon exiting the tunnels, Logan showed us some terrifying traps which were used by the Viet Cong, and after this, to conclude the tour, we were treated to some jasmine tea and boiled tapioca with crushed peanuts and sugar, which was a staple food of the fighters who lived in the tunnels during the war. Then it was back to Ho Chi Minh City, where we would spend our final few hours doing some last-minute sightseeing and grabbing some food.
Yeah, can I just add one thing?
Go on.
Never, ever try to invade Vietnam.
So right now we're walking down Saigon Book Street and it's a little quiet, but I definitely think if you're a bookworm, this is a good place to visit. There are bookshops lining both sides of the streets and a few cafes around, so it's definitely a good place to explore.
And before you leave Book Street, be sure to turn around and grab this photo of the Notre Dame Cathedral at the top of the street.
hangry dad. He's a hangry dad. I think my dad's feeling a wee bit hangry, so we're going to take him and get some bun thit nhung, which is rice vermicelli noodles and pork that also does a special that comes with, I think it's pronounced cha yao, which is deep fried spring rolls.
If you love street food, then this hawker stall is an absolute must. I'm not sure this place has a name, but I'll put up the Google Maps name so you can find it for yourself. As I said, we came for the bun thit nhung special with spring rolls. Bun thit nhung is a combination of grilled pork, cold vermicelli noodles, and salad served with herbs like mint, basil, and dressed with peanuts with a side of fish sauce. So it's a very refreshing meal, which is perfect for a warm day. One thing you'll hear me say a lot in this vlog series is how every meal I had in Vietnam was the best meal I've ever had. And that's because all the food we had in Vietnam was on a different astral plane in terms of fragrance, flavor, and texture. The food from this stall was no exception, so I implore you to add this to your Ho Chi Minh itinerary. After we finished our food, it was time to conclude our Ho Chi Minh trip with some last-minute sightseeing. This time, however, I would be doing it alone.
Dad has left me. He is feeling so tired he can't continue on, but I want to do some more sightseeing, so I'm going to walk to the Arabica building here, and then I'm going to go to the Pink Church, which I can't for the life of me remember what it's called. It's getting to a really nice time of day now. We're about 4 o'clock here, and the sun's getting low in the sky, the temperature's bearable, and it's the perfect time for taking some photos. So let's see what this looks like when I get here. Hopefully it's some nice light hitting the building.
This is the Arabica building, or the Cafe Apartments. Beginning life as military housing in the mid-1960s, these apartments were transformed into cafes in the 2010s. So not only is it a great place to grab a coffee, but it's a great place to grab a photo. Just be sure to use a wide-angle lens so that you can do a lot of geometrical corrections in post and end up with an image like this.
So I've got finished up with the Arabica building and I've walked over to the Opera House, which is just behind me. Absolutely beautiful building. Clearly French in design, which is a nice contrast compared to District 5, which we were in yesterday. It's so cool to be in a city with so many districts, and each of those districts having their own character really adds to the experience. But I'm going to head over to the government building right now, and then we're going to hit up the Pink Church. And by that time I think I'll be ready for a shower because I smell bad.
Wouldn't the end of this video be a great time for my camera and my mic to die? Thankfully, I was able to use my phone to capture some scenes from the government building and the Pink Church, which is called Tan Din. When you get to the church, I recommend grabbing a coffee at Kong Cafe or grabbing a drink on the terrace of the bar across the street from the church, where, again, using a wide-angle lens with post-processing, you'll be able to make images like these. And sadly, that brings our time in Ho Chi Minh City to a close. There are still so many iconic locations we didn't get to visit, such as the famous Ben Tan and Tan Din markets or the famous Beer Street. So to answer the question, is 2 days in Ho Chi Minh City enough? Absolutely not. I think 3 or 4 full days is the perfect amount of time to spend here in order for you to leave the city feeling complete. And as a bonus recommendation, if you love good food and bars, I recommend that you visit District 2, which is home to many expats, and when you're there, be sure to eat at Hue Corner, where we had some of the best fried spring rolls we have ever tried to this day. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video or found it useful, please hit the like button, as that will help YouTube push the video out to other people who might also enjoy the video or find it useful. And if you want to keep up to date with all my future videos, hit the subscribe button and YouTube will let you know when I post a video in the future. Thanks once again, and I'll catch you in the next one.